When Iris arrived at her grandmother's old mansion, the world seemed wrapped in a thick, silent fog. The air smelled of damp wood and dust, a scent that hadn't changed since childhood. It was a smell that held memories she couldn't quite grasp. She hadn't been here since she was 6, when her parents had whisked her away without a word of explanation. Now the house was hers, and so were all of its secrets. The local villagers had been kind, welcoming her back with cautious smiles, but their eyes lingered a little too long whenever she mentioned the house, especially the attic. One old man, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, leaned in close and whispered, "Some doors, miss, were meant to stay closed." Iris just offered a polite smile. She didn't believe in superstitions or old wives' tales. She was here to renovate, to sell, to move on. That was the plan anyway. The first night was quiet, almost too quiet. The silence of the countryside was a stark contrast to the city she'd left behind. It was a silence so deep it felt heavy. That is, until it wasn't quiet anymore. Just past midnight, as a restless wind sighed through the broken window panes, a soft humming drifted from somewhere above. It was a lullaby, gentle, hauntingly familiar. The kind her grandmother used to hum back when Iris was a little girl with scraped knees and tangled hair. At first, Iris dismissed it. It was just the wind playing tricks on her mind in this old creaking house. But then the sound came again, a slow, steady rhythm, as though someone was rocking gently in a chair. A chill she couldn't explain crept down her spine. She pulled the blankets tighter, telling herself it was just her imagination running wild. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the dusty windows, chasing away the shadows and her midnight fears. Everything seemed normal. But as she went to make coffee, she noticed something on the staircase leading upward. Faint footprints in the thick layer of dust. They were small, delicate, like those of a child, but that was impossible. She lived alone. She brushed it off, blaming a draft or settling dust. There had to be a logical explanation. That evening, as dust settled over the mansion, an uneasy feeling began to grow in the pit of her stomach. She tried to distract herself, sorting through old boxes in the living room, but her ears were constantly straining, listening for the slightest sound from above. The silence was deafening. She found herself holding her breath, waiting. And then on the third night, it came again, the humming, louder this time. It wasn't just a vague melody on the wind. It was a clear, deliberate tune echoing down the stairs. Her heart started to pound against her ribs. She couldn't ignore it any longer. She had to know what was up there. Taking a deep breath to steady her shaking hands, she lit a single candle, its small flame casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. She began to climb. Each wooden step groaned under her weight like an old throat clearing itself. The air grew colder, heavier, with an almost metallic taste to it. Goosebumps erupted on her arms. When she finally reached the landing, the attic door stood before her, a dark rectangle in the flickering candlelight. And that's when she saw it, something strange and deeply unsettling. Deep scratch marks ran along the wood, splintering the frame. They weren't from the outside, trying to get in. They were from the inside, as if someone had been desperately trying to get out. Her hand trembled as she reached for the old brass knob. It turned with a rusty squeal. The door creaked open, revealing the darkness within. The attic was still, filled with the scent of old paper, dried lavender, and the inescapable smell of time itself. Cobwebs hung from the rafters like ghostly curtains. And in the center of the room, bathed in the soft glow of her candle, sat a rocking chair. It was moving, slowly, back and forth, as if pushed by an unseen hand. No one was there. Iris's breath caught in her throat, a small choked sound. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on a small table beside the chair. On it lay a framed photograph, its edges worn and sepia-toned. She picked it up. It was a picture of a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old. The girl's smile was sweet, her eyes bright with innocent joy, and her face was unmistakable. It was hers. A perfect miniature version of her that couldn't be. She stared at the date etched beneath the image. 1953. The candle in her hand flickered violently, almost going out. From the corner of her eye, a shadow shifted. A soft, childlike voice, no louder than a whisper, broke the silence. "You came back." Iris whirled around, her heart hammering against her ribs, but the attic was empty. Empty, except for the incessant rocking of the chair. And now the humming had returned. It was no longer distant. It was louder, closer, seeming to come from right behind her. She stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror, her mind screaming for her to run. She turned toward the stairs, but the attic door slammed shut with a deafening bang that echoed through the entire house. The rocking chair began to creak faster and faster, a frantic, horrifying rhythm. And then, on the dusty walls, handprints began to appear. Small, dusty handprints, blooming out of the plaster everywhere. The humming grew, the melody swelling until it formed words. A song she suddenly remembered from the deepest, darkest corners of her memory, her grandmother's song. "Sleep, little one, don't you cry, Mama's gone, but you'll never die." Iris opened her mouth to scream, but the sound was swallowed by a chorus of whispers that erupted all around her, whispering her name. Again, and again, and again. Days later, when worried villagers finally entered the silent mansion, they found the attic door wide open. The rocking chair was still moving back and forth in a slow, patient rhythm. And on the small table, a new photograph had appeared next to the old one. It showed Iris's face, her eyes closed, a faint, peaceful smile on her lips. And beneath the image, a new date was etched, 2025. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoy tales of mystery and things that go bump in the night, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us bring more stories like this to you. We'll see you in the next one.